Hey y'all, Chocolate and Wild Child's here, and today I'm going to talk to you about making the noodle board or the stove top cover and all of the things that I learned from it, because there was a lot of mishaps and mistakes that would be really easily changed had I known before I went into it. So, if at any point you have any questions, just type them in the comments below and I will answer them either during the video or after. So I'm going to show you the noodle board. So it's this beautiful cover that I made for my stove. Now with that, I'm going to kind of walk you through how I made it. And then I'm going to tell you as I'm going where I went wrong. So first things first, I measured my stove because I at least had enough sense to do that. So I always have a tape measure. I even carry one in my purse now because of what happened with the noodle board. But I went and measured my stove just to make sure that it was similar to what the instructions had posted for me, and it was a little off, so I adjusted. And then I went to the store, but I didn't bring a measuring tape, and that's where things started to go wrong. So I got to Home Depot, and it told me, I need 10 foot of a 1x6 board. So I looked at the tags on the shelf and I was like, okay, awesome. Grabbed my 1x6 at 10 foot, and then it said I need 48 inches of 1x4. So grabbed that. And then I went over, and if you don't have a saw, we have a saw at home, but sometimes it's just easier for me to have them cut it so that I don't have to ask my husband to mess with it, and the saw still freaks me out, so I don't use that yet. I'm working on building up enough courage to mess with the saw, but I'm not there yet. So I go over there and I had them cut my boards. And they do a great job cutting. I haven't had them mess that up. So that's awesome. And also, super exciting, kind of like secret number one, how I can afford to have tons of lumber. Because, we're not made of money. But how I do this is buy the saws at Home Depot, Lowe's, I'm sure pretty much anywhere. Did you know that they have clearanced boards that sometimes are in perfectly good shape? It's just somebody decided they didn't want it, or it was extra, or it might be chipped, or for a million reasons. They will reduce these boards down to 70% off. So that's how I get all these. Every time I have to go in there for anything, I stop by there and see if there's any lumber that I could use. And that's how we ended up with all of this wood for all these projects. But this, I went in and I went to the store and grabbed these specific things because I didn't want to mess this up. And then so I got home with my cut boards because they cut them for me, and I put them on 2 sawhorses just across. It was the easiest thing for me to put it on. You can put it on plastic. Either way, don't do it. Don't stain your stuff anywhere that you're going to not want to mess up, because stain is messy. It's really messy. So wear like old clothes and do it somewhere not near anything you like. So I sanded them down, the edges, because when you cut stuff it tends to get a little rough. So you sand all the edges down. You can sand the tops of the boards down to make sure that they're all smooth. And then I stained them. And the one I used was espresso, because I want a really dark stain because my cabinets are black and white. But you can choose any stain you want. I have a whole bunch of them. And they're fairly cheap and they go a long way. So I stained them, So stain the tops and the sides first, let it dry, flip them over, stain the backs. So excited. And I go to glue the boards together. So you take wood glue and you glue the sides together and then smush them together, and you're supposed to clamp them, except for I was like, oh, I don't need clamps. Yes, you need clamps. And then I glued these boards. However, I didn't glue these boards until I had to have my husband recut the two 24-inch boards because I didn't measure at the store my 1x6s. They were actually 1 by 5.5. And that 1/2 inch makes a huge difference. So then I had to have them cut off like a small piece, about 2 inches off of each of my 1x4s, so that they were down to 22 inches, which is what the length is when you put all these boards together. It ended up being 22 inches because when you take a 1/2 inch off of each of these, you lose 2 full inches. So these boards went from being 24 inches to being 22 inches. And when he did that, I had to stain the side that he cut and sand it and everything. Did that, glued it down, and realized I need clamps. That was really stupid. So I'm gonna buy clamps next time I go. So tip number 2, always get the clamps. And then, so I had to make do with what we had. And I set it in the house with plastic underneath it and plastic on top of it, and had a bunch of lumber set on top of it so that it would seal together while the glue dried. And then once that was dry, I came and I turned it over so that you had the back, which is here with all those felt pads, except for those felt pads obviously weren't there at first. And I measured out and drew a little circle about 1.5 inches in to each board, and put 2, I'm sure you could probably do 1, but I put 2 in each of the boards on each side. So came to 16 screws. Once again, I had 1 5/8 inch screws. Those should have been great for 2 1-inch boards, because you'd go all the way through one and partially way through the other. Well, come to find out, my boards are actually 3/4 of an inch thick, not 1 inch thick. Another problem. Literally just nothing but problems. But I'm a fixer, so I made it work. So I just didn't screw the screws all the way down flush with the board and covered them with the felt. I suggest you cover them with felt anyways, because you don't want to scratch your cooktop. But for future reference, make sure you measure all parts of the board to make sure that it is the right thickness and width and everything before buying it, because that would have made everything go so much smoother, so that your screws don't come through the top of it. Or buy shorter screws. But I didn't have any shorter screws, and I didn't want to wait because I'm impatient. And so I screwed them all in. I actually like to hammer my screws down a little bit so that they stay put while I use the drill. So I did that, screwed them all in, flipped it over, and added these cute little handles that I got at the store. And those I measured halfway across and put, this in the center of it, screwed it down on both sides, and then I was ready to chalk, except for I like to, when it comes to the wood, to make it go on really smooth, I like to seal it with a sealant, which, hold on, I'll find that. Like this. You can pretty much use any sealant that specifically says it's non-yellowing, because if you use the yellowing, it makes it look funny, especially if you're sealing over a design. So then I sealed it outside because that stuff stinks, and it gets everywhere. So I sealed it, let it dry, and then I put my transfers down. So these two are from one transfer, and then this is just a Monogram Transfer, and that's for our last name. And so I just measured it out to be centered on the board, laid them all down, take my squeegee and chalk paste, and made sure it was all sealed, went over it. And what's great is if you seal before and say it leaks a little bit, I had some leaking over here, and all I had to do was take a little Q-tip and get it wet and go along it, and it cleaned it right up, took it right off. And once that was dry, I sealed it again. Now, I didn't use a food safe sealant because I don't intend on putting food directly onto this. It's strictly for decoration to cover my stove. But there are food safe sealants at any of the hardware stores that you can use for like butcher blocks or cheese boards and things like that you can decorate, and then you can seal it, and it's totally safe for your food and can be washed and everything like that. So yeah, that is all of the things that went wrong while making this. But it's awesome because now I know for next time all the things that I do differently. Make sure you have the right boards. Even though it says it on the tag at the store that it's a 1x6, it's not necessarily 1x6, so you need to measure it and make sure, and then either adjust to the different lengths of the boards or widths, or go find the right one. And then you can have the stores cut it for you so that you either don't have to buy a saw or don't have to deal with it, which 9 times out of 10 I just have them cut it because they do it for free. And then you definitely want clamps. That was not fun. Definitely get clamps. Those are super, super useful. And always have a tape measure with you. I know that's a really weird thing to have in my purse, but you have no idea how many times I use that thing. I use a tape measure every day. I know that's probably odd, but totally useful. So yeah, if you have any questions, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I will get back to you with the answers. And if I don't know the answers, I will totally go find them for you. And if you've had any mishaps or not so nailed it moments, I'd love to hear about that, because I can't possibly be the only one that's come into really odd situations like this. But yeah, I love my board, and thankfully I was able to adjust and fix it to where it still looks great and works for what I intended it for. But now I know what I do differently for the next time I make one, either for a customer or to help a friend out. And yeah, so if you would like more tips and tricks on how to do DIY projects, or you just want to be fully entertained by all of the things that tend to go wrong while I make projects, be sure to hit follow on the Chalk and Wild Child page, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.